Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of the live 49ers Mailbag. You know it. You love it. This is the show where we mix between previously submitted questions and those that come in live during the chat. If you've sent one in ahead of time, I want to say thank you. I appreciate all of you that respond on Twitter when I send out the Tuesday morning tweets asking for your questions, and those that still hit me in the old school 49ers mailbag at gmail.com. You can throw out a question at any point during the week to that email address, because then it's just going to sit there and I'll be able to go through it and find it prior to this show. Those of you submitting it onto Twitter, it's got to be a little bit more of a Tuesday thing, because that's when I send out the question asking for your responses. Those of you that like to ask your questions live in the chat, you can always do that when you are here for the program itself. So I bounce back and forth between my previously submitted questions and those in the chat. Obviously, the previously submitted ones get a little bit more of a well thought out answer, and you get the off the cuff stuff when you ask me right there in the chat. And so people prefer it that way. I want to give this shout out to those that are here saying what's up in the chat. Dustin Kohler. I know Dustin is happy tonight because Hard Knocks and the Detroit Lions begin tonight. That is going to be aired tonight for the first show. And I know that Dustin is going to be watching that as a loyal Lions fan. 916 49er coming in to say number 5 will bring number 6. Trey Lance is going to bring in the 6th Lombardi trophy. I got a feeling that's going to be accurate. I think we may have to pump the brakes on it happening this year, although I'm still optimistic. But I believe that in this rookie contract, we're going to have a chance. We are going to have a chance. Stivers 209 football coming in to say, do you think Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan era to start 2022 season this season will be the 49ers Super Bowl season? Niners have a good defense, good special teams, and a good front office this year. This goes right into what I was just talking about. I do think the Niners have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. I want to be very clear about that. I absolutely believe that this team is talented enough to do so. I'm just not expecting that to be the reality. I'll be very happy with a playoff appearance, a couple of playoff victories. I'll be ecstatic if Trey Lance brings back number 6. Raphael 5629er comes in as a sneakerhead here on the channel to say, what's up, Rob, sneakerheads, and everyone. What's up, Raphael? Appreciate you. Ellis 10 sneakerhead here on the channel coming in to say, bang, bang. John B. Sneakerhead here on the channel say, hey, everyone, feels like it's been forever since the last live. It has been a minute. I was live on Thursday with the call-in show, but as far as, the Wednesday show, Randon was out ill last week. He's going to be back. We're going to be back with the Wednesday show tomorrow between two beards. Going to try and keep this thing rolling. Tom Bragg doing the good work, pointing out there are only 33 more days until we get to the regular season. I'm counting down 3 days until preseason football, because we play the Packers on Friday, and I'm here for it. 4 TDs coming in. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Jamie Bryant. This is how you want to address your comments in the chat. If you're hitting me with one of those live questions, hit me with @Rob or @RobShoe. Jamie Bryant coming in. @RobShoe, what up? And faithful, man, I'm ready for some Niner football. Hey, man, it is good to see you, Jamie. I also am ready for football. Wanda Brown in the house. What's up, Wanda? Always good to see your smiling face there in the small icons there saying hello. Spy Nick Danger saying go Niners. Swan Song coming in with the smooth waves. We got a question from Swan Song for later. We got more people in the chat. We got Archie Cabanillas. We got Andre Moore. We got Charles Alt. We got Darren Worthington. We've got Joey Huff, Jacob Q, Ken Fashion Journey, all of you that are currently in the chat. Again, if you want to type in a question for me, hit me with @RobShoe, but also do me the favor of smashing that like button. If you're here, if you're watching the program, then you enjoy the mailbag. The mailbag is a fantastic show. We want to get the mailbag out to more and more Niner faithful, and the way in which you can help me do that is upping the algorithm on YouTube. Hit that like button and send this thing to the moon. All right, I got a couple of questions in the chat that I'm going to get back to in just a moment, but I'm getting to my first of the previously submitted questions because those get the priority. John B. coming in with this one. John B. says, does Willie Snead have a shot to come in and snatch that wide receiver 3 spot from Jennings, or is he just a camp body with a recognizable name? I have to say, in answer specifically to the question, I don't think he has a legit shot at unseating Jauan Jennings, although the reports on Jauan Jennings have been mixed. There's no doubt about that. It seems to be a small case of the drops going down for Jauan, but then it's balanced out with a fantastic catch here, a fantastic catch there. I think it will take a lot to unseat Jauan Jennings because he seems so wildly popular with his fellow players, the coaching staff. And when you getting good with Shanahan, typically it takes something to unseat that, right? He doesn't just give away those positions to new people coming in. But I will say, I absolutely believe that Snead has a chance to grab the 6th wide receiver spot if the Niners do carry that many wide receivers. And I've got to admit that may not happen. There may not be 6 wide receivers on the roster, but if there are, I think Snead has a very good chance of making it there. This is the quote today that I loved hearing. This one came from Jake Hutchinson on Twitter. This is his tweet. Writing a full practice report now, but should mention that Willie Snead absolutely pancaked Drake Jackson today, setting the edge for a nice Trey Sermon run. Still don't think the 49ers keep a 6th wide receiver, but that's the sort of thing that'll get Shanahan's attention. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Not the first part. I actually do think the Niners are going to carry 6 wide receivers this time around. I think when they don't carry 6 wide receivers, it's because they're deeper at another offensive position, typically a skill position. I don't think that's the case. I don't think the Niners are keeping, 4 tight ends with this tight end group. I don't think that we're keeping, 6 running backs if you include Juice in that mix. I think you got 4 halfbacks, you got Juice, you got 3 tight ends, and then I'm thinking 6 wide receivers. Will they want to keep an extra offensive lineman? Yes, absolutely. The depth on this O-line is great. Starters are still in question there. But back to this idea of endearing himself to Coach Shanahan. If Shanahan sees that type of a veteran presence still out there blocking his ass off, you could envision Shanahan saying to himself, I got to have this dog in my wide receiver room. I have to have this mentality to show what these young guys are missing. Maybe not missing. It's not fair to say Debo's missing anything, but to show some of the guys in the room what it means to be a true professional. You've heard Shanahan talk about that type of value that he places on veterans before. And David Lombardi pointing out that Willie Snead made his mark today with a touchdown catch on a great throw from Nate Sudfeld. So he's making plays. He's sticking his head in there, and he's getting noticed. I would think there's a chance he makes this roster. I do not think that he has a chance to unseat Jauan Jennings. I would be surprised by that. A veteran tone center helping to shape a young wide receiver room. That's a storyline I can get behind. All right, I'm coming back into the comments to get your your current live comments as they're happening. All right, here we go. Got my first one here. Darren Worthington coming in. Rob, I haven't been able to see you for a bit because of work. Missed you. Excited for the show, brother. Much love. Much love back, Darren. Not a question, but I always love it. I always love it. Archie coming in. Rob, I already predicted that on your channel. First one to say it. Archie, what did you predict? Which prediction did you make? I can't recall what I was talking about at 5:05. Come back in. Let me know, Archie. I would like to know what it is you correctly predicted. Ken Fashion Journey coming in. Rob Shue. I'm so concerned with our backup quarterback situation. This is phenomenal. The 49ers spend all of 2021 telling us just how important the backup quarterback position is. So important that we need to go out and spend multiple first-round picks on drafting a new guy, not to replace Jimmy Garoppolo last season, but to back him up because Jimmy is a good enough guy when he's starting. We're going to let him start one more year before he departs. And then, we've got Trey back there because you got to have a good backup quarterback. Flash forward to 2022, Trey's the starter. You got to have a good backup quarterback, right? No, you have Nate Sudfeld. You go inexpensive at backup quarterback when it's your young quarterback there. And believe me, I get it on some level. I don't want someone behind Trey Lance that when he struggles at some point, because I anticipate as a young quarterback, he will struggle at some point. When that does happen, if there were someone behind him like a Jimmy Garoppolo, like a Tyrod Taylor, you could hear a subsection of the fan base calling for that quarterback. And I don't want to see that with Trey Lance. Now, I have, on the other hand, said if Jimmy Garoppolo was willing to renegotiate his salary to a manageable backup quarterback position to that level, that I also would consider bringing him back. Off the cuff, in one of the last mailbags, I said that I would in that $10 million range. After saying that, I felt mixed about it, right? That was an off-the-cuff answer that, in giving it more thought, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on whether having a qualified backup behind Trey Lance is in any way a negative. I don't think that it should be. I understand if it is Jimmy Garoppolo that it could become a distraction. However, it is fair to point out that it's difficult to play quarterback within the NFL, and one needs to be able to shut out some of the noise. The question just becomes, is having Jimmy Garoppolo in the building beyond his salary becoming guaranteed too big of a distraction? And I go back and forth on that one. Joey Mellon, sneakerhead here on the channel, coming in, says, Rob, haven't been on for a while, took a 49er break. Good to hear that sweet shoe voice. Joey, welcome back. Great one. 765 says, Rob Shoe, I was rooting for the Niners to draft Kirby Joseph, the safety. Want to see how he shows out on Hard Knocks. Hey, this will be a good test to keep up on all those Detroit Lions players. Like I said, I know Dustin Kohler is going to be watching it. Martin coming in to say, chillin', watching Rob. What news do you have for us? Hey, it's mailbag time. What do you want to talk about? Ask your questions, Martin. I'm here. The Sentinel says, Rob, if you could please debunk the rumor that you and Grant have parted ways. I wish I could debunk that rumor, the Sentinel. I actually got a question about this previously submitted to and didn't bring it up because, honestly, I get this question a lot, and I go back and forth on not feeling bad about answering it. I don't at all. I have zero hard feelings against Grant. I would be totally willing to collaborate with him again, and that's not my choice. It's his channel. He gets to decide who he wants to collaborate with, who he doesn't want to collaborate with. And he has every right to take offense or not take offense at something that was said about him. And I'm left to assume that in that period around the Jauan Kinlaw situation, that I must have said something that offended Grant because he decided not to return my text at that point. So I have no hard feelings there. And I'm not gonna bash Grant in any way, not going to insult him at any point. I still view him to be an asset to 49ers fans. I'm grateful for the time that I spent with him in conversing and in helping me grow my channel. And I remain open to, squashing whatever remains for him on that side, for sure. All right, Jamie Bryant coming in. Rob Shoe, will Ross Dwelley and Womack make the 53-man? I was looking at the 53-man, looking at the depth chart that Shanahan had nothing to do with. And you look at Dwelley, you look at the rest of the tight ends there. As of right now, I still think Ross Dwelley has a shot to make that 53-man roster. But I'm considering it less than a coin flip. I'm not saying that he is greater than 50% chance to make this roster. I think there's every chance that one of those remaining tight ends does unseat Ross Dwelley for one of the backup tight end spots. Sam Womack, I do think, makes the 53. He's in there as the second nickel on the depth chart there. I absolutely think that, it's even possible he claims the starting role as a nickel cornerback. Charles Alt, sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, Trey is starting in Green Bay. How many snaps do you see? All right, we had a question about this. So, Charles, I'm going to take this moment to go ahead and answer that question. It was a previously submitted question, so I'm going to get this in here. Here we go. Raphael threw this one in here. Very similar. Says, will Trey Lance play one quarter or more Friday? To me, in answering the earlier comment, right, around whether Trey Lance will play a number of snaps, I think it's going to be number of drives. And I have the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan centering in on 2 drives for Trey. Now, I believe his hope would be those are successful drives that march down the field, 6, 7, 8 plays, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown at the end, that they get some sort of score out of it. And I would guess that it does last about one quarter of play for Trey. That would be more than I would expect to see out of Trey in the first preseason game. But the 49ers are in this weird, wacky preseason schedule wherein they play 3 preseason games in 13 days. Less than 2 weeks, they play 2 football games. Oh, and by the way, during those 13 days, they have 2 joint practices that are significantly harder than practices where it's 49ers versus 49ers, right? These are typically the practices where there are scuffles, where it's a little bit more physical, where the hitting is a little bit harder, and that's what I expect to see. So you're looking at a unique situation for Kyle Shanahan. He has expressed as much. I think he's going to have his heart set on a number of drives for Trey. I'm saying 2 full drives. I'm guessing that it's a balance for him in getting maximum amount of playing time for Trey, max number of reps, while also still keeping him healthy there. So I see, yes, a quarter, but that depends greatly on what Green Bay is able to do in moving the ball. If they turn the ball right back over to us, then perhaps the 49ers, only have Trey in there for the first 10 minutes of the first quarter. But if it's a kickoff to Green Bay, they possess the ball for 3 minutes, kick it back to the Niners. They go on a nice 7-play drive, kick it back to Green Bay. Quick turnover, because the Niners are forcing turnovers right now. And then they go on another 8-play drive. Boom, quarter's over. And Trey gets his play time. It's Nostradamus right there. I'm predicting the future. All right, getting back into your current comments, the ones that you are leaving for me in the chat. Here we go. Swan Song coming in. Rob, think of it this way. Snead was sitting there on the free agent market, so even if they release him, chances are he'll still be there. But now at least he's gotten work in if we need him. Yeah, I mean, I see a couple of players that are still above Willie Snead on the depth chart as of right now. But if he continues to put on tape what he has put on tape and show those things that beat reporters are reporting to us now, I do think he has a chance to make it there. But I agree. If someone's out there in free agency now, that's typically a sign that you can waive them and they will clear waivers. Kim Adams coming in. Rob, keeping Jimmy would be like a slow-acting poison. Yeah, it would be painful. And I definitely, there's a part of me that says, all right, you can't fault the logic that like you're better with a better backup quarterback. And Jimmy Garoppolo is a better backup quarterback than Nate Sudfeld. So that logic is really sound to me. However, you get into the distraction element of it. You get into the pain and suffering for us as 49er faithful. That's the one I'm hanging my hat on. That's the one I can't live with. I do not want to continue talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. I love you, Jimmy. Hey, appreciate what you did for us. I wish you nothing but the best where you end up. And I hope you end up somewhere else. I want to see what Trey Lance can do. I want to move on to the young gentleman. And I don't want to have it hanging over his head. I have to agree with Kim there. Paul coming in. Rob Shue, I like a quality backup. I even like Jimmy in a vacuum, but we're not in a vacuum, so it can't be Jimmy, in my opinion. People are agreeing that it is a big-time distraction. Darren Worthington, Rob, what's your thoughts on the defense not playing Ward and Mosley today and Trey Lance lighting it up? Mosley pulled a hamstring, so that was standard. He's going to be out for a couple of practices more, and I do think that it's good to build up the young gentleman. I don't want to have him struggle consistently throughout camp. So even if it is sort of a false reprieve from this defense, I view this defense as a top 3 unit. I've been saying that for all offseason, basically. And I believe they have a chance to be the best unit in the league. So if you need to handicap our offense a little bit to give them the advantage someday, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with building up the young gentleman's confidence. I do need to see us go against Green Bay to get a real sense of where this team stands. I don't know where it stands right now. With how good this defense is, with how they've been lighting up Trey, I don't know what to make of it so far. Joey Huff coming in. Rob, how many plays does Trey play the first preseason game? Talked about it. I'm saying 1 quarter, 2 drives. 2 drives. That's what I'm saying. All right. Gold Blooded says, Gold in the house. What's up, faithful? Rob, Tuesday. Cheers, my dude. Cheers, Gold Blooded. Cheers to you indeed. All right. Looking for those. All right. Here we go. Moses Martinez coming in. Rob Shue, you really sold on Womack? I'm not. His technique is what I question. I have not seen enough of Womack to really have an opinion. Moses, if you're saying you're not sold on him, I'm going to have a close eye there. It appears as if Darquez Denard is still leading the way in that spot for the nickel cornerback position. But until I see them against Green Bay Friday, it's hard to say any different than what we're seeing on that sheet. Swansong says, Rob Shue, Green Bay probably has the best cornerback duo in the NFL. This will be the test. This will be the test. Yes, pointing out it is Eric Stokes and Zaire Alexander. That is going to be a phenomenal duo to go up against. It'll be interesting to see how long they play for, how long they are in, whether they're in for the entirety of Trey Lance's appearance in that game. But yes, I think there are a lot of 49er faithful, myself included, that are really, really excited for preseason action to see Trey out there. John B. coming in here says, Rob, even though they released the depth chart, even though the release depth chart is unofficial and Shanahan doesn't have anything to do with it, does it look like the potential chart to start the season? I think it does. I mean, there's only a couple of areas there that I think really get moved around, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I had a question come in from TrueSpeak, and I'm going to be getting to TrueSpeak's question in just a moment. Charles Alt coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, with them 2 drives, how many starters will Trey have to work with? The vast majority, I would suspect, will be out there. I would not expect Mike McGlinchey. I probably would not expect Trent Williams out there. But maybe. That's a maybe. I have to think that the vast majority of the skill position players will be out there. Debo is a question mark, right? You want to ramp up Debo slowly. He was out of camp for a while. Do you put him in this game? So I think that maybe your 2 starting tackles and Debo are the ones that you're down at this point. Everyone else I would expect to see in there. All right, we've got Chris Royal coming in with the super chat. Says, late to the show, a report came out. Roger Goodell says there's enough evidence to implement a 1-year suspension. Can we potentially see Jimmy moved? Yes, we can. I was reading PFF on Twitter right before coming on saying, hey, like what I heard Goodell say there, I'm going back to believing this is a 1-year suspension, believing that it is 17 games at a minimum. And I got to admit, Roger Goodell's language that he was using seems to indicate that the NFL is favoring a heavier suspension levied on Deshaun Watson. And yes, I do think that potentially opens up the landing spot for Jimmy Garoppolo. It does come down to how much of that salary is Jimmy willing to eat? How much of that salary are the 49ers willing to eat? I know that the Browns could stomach the entirety of Jimmy's salary at once. They have the cap space to do that. However, that cap space is there with the intention of being used in later years, the intention of rolling it over and using it to build their roster going forward. So they don't want to spend the entirety of it on a quarterback that comes in to fill in for Deshaun Watson. However, I'm sure they're willing to spend some of it so that 2022 isn't a wasted season for them. I'm telling you, I see Cleveland as one of the last spots, and I'm crossing my fingers that we actually get that trade done. All right, here we go. Ken Fashion Journey coming in here says, Rob Shue, it will be too ambitious that Trey can be healthy and play 17 games in the regular season. I don't have confidence with Nate Sudfeld as he was bad when he came in for Carson Wentz. Yes, if you remember, they brought in Nate Sudfeld to help secure the loss for Philly. Yeah, it's questionable to have Nate Sudfeld as your backup quarterback. I don't want it to be Jimmy for the reason that it is a distraction, but I do want to have a better backup than Nate Sudfeld. No offense intended to Nate at all. Ken Fashion Journey coming back to say, I'm sure that Nick Mullins or CJ will be better than Nate Sudfeld. I'm not sure if that's entirely true on both, although Mullins did light it up a little bit out there. So you never know. Kevin, sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, damn, forgot to add the @Rob with my comment. Rookie mistake. Kevin, did I get to it? Did I read it or did I skip it? Ooh, here we go. I found one from you, Kevin. He says, Jimmy's just showing off that he's still an available player on the roster. Listing him on the first draft 53 means nothing. He'll either be traded end of the month or before he's due his windfall, unless he gets injured and is owed $7.5 million if cut. Personally, I wouldn't risk it for the team and just cut him. to your point there, if he got injured at practice, he would be due that $7.5 million injury guarantee. The Niners are not letting him practice. He's not coming into meetings. He's throwing on the side field. I don't think that there's really any risk of injury from what Jimmy is doing within practice. I do agree with you, Kevin, that he's basically displaying himself as like, hey, I am here. I'm available. I can throw this football. And eventually, I do anticipate a team comes calling. However, is it enough to get a deal done? At this point, I honestly just don't know. And if I'm the 49ers, I'm absolutely cutting him before I'm keeping him on the roster in his current salary. That is just way too much for him to earn. John B. coming in. Rob, with Jimmy's contract being non-guaranteed, they could renegotiate as soon as the trade happens to make it more appealing. Yes, and the 49ers have given the permission to speak to Jimmy's camp with the new team. Like, they could have a deal in place before a trade happens. Let that be clear. Jimmy could agree with this new team, hey, as soon as you sign me, I'm going to play for $14 million, right? And the Niners could say, hey, of that $14 million, we'll eat $4 million. Right. And then you could see a situation where Jimmy's traded. But for that same reason, I don't think the Niners will want to pay any of Jimmy's money. And if he's not willing to take a huge hit in that $24 million, I'm just not sure who is actually trading for him at this point. Starco fan 212, aside from Cleveland, obviously. Rob Shue, how do you think Trey will perform versus the Packers in the preseason? I'm really hoping that we see some positivity. I am bracing for this is a young quarterback playing against a good team. I suspect that the Packers have a little added motivation to make us, look foolish. They're the type of team that might hold a little grudge from losing to us last year. So they might have a little something in store for that preseason game. A little more than you would normally get in preseason. Niners Warriors coming in. Rob, news of E-Man's hamstring is a reality check today. Do you have faith in our backups until Jason Verrett is back? I'm having pass interference flashbacks from last year. Lenore or Holman? I feel far better this year than I did last season because you're going to Lenore. You're going to Ambry Thomas. It's not Josh Norman's season yet, and it's a mild hamstring pull. It is a reminder that, hey, this is why the Niners invested as much as they did in the cornerback room, because it can get ugly quickly if you have injuries in the NFL. But let's be very clear that that's true across the league. You take out one of the two starting cornerbacks for any team in the league, and they are hurting. Most do not have a third or a fourth super capable backup cornerback. It's typically you got the one that's a stud, and then maybe someone who's starting caliber, and then a bunch of young dudes or unproven guys or, vets that have been all around this league. So it's not a unique circumstance that the 49ers find themselves in. But yes, it is a reminder. It is a reminder that it was important to stock up. Jacob is out there doing the good deal. He's like, hey, man, we need more likes on this video. Ellis is pointing out there are more likes on the video. Maybe it's a refresh that is needed. But anyways, not enough likes happened yet, apparently, according to Jacob. Ellis 10, backing that up. We just need to get it rolling. Get some of those rolling. All right, we are looking for a couple more of the currently submitted ones. We're going back to the previously submitted questions. I'll be back to answer yours in the chat in just a moment. This one comes in from Millie Vanilli. Millie Vanilli, I love the name. Says, what are your realistic expectations for Kemoko Turay, currently listed as the fourth stringer on the 49ers initial depth chart? Can he crack the 53-man roster, or does he get cut on cut down day? There is an article out there that I found suggesting Turay as a potential roster cut, but suggesting a trade might be better. It comes from the Denver Broncos. And this beat reporter talks about how, hey, the 49ers and the Broncos have been able to make this happen in the past for fringe players. You look at the linebacker that was traded for a 6th-round pick. I could see a similar circumstance here. At the tail end of the 49ers roster, especially when it comes to defensive line, there are starting caliber players that will not make this team. Barring, some string of injuries, and I'm knocking on wood as I say that, the Niners have more starting bodies along the defensive line than they have starting spots available. They will get cute about that. Kalia Davis, I do not expect to make it off of the non-football injury list, right? The Niners will stash him there as the 6th-round draft pick that was injured prior to being drafted and hope that he can come back and if needed, contribute midway through the season. I could envision them doing the same with any number of small injuries that may befell a member of the defensive line group. But if they do not, if they make it through camp, everybody's healthy, especially when it gets to that edge position, I think the Niners absolutely pursue this strategy of finding a fringe player, either Jordan Willis or Kemoko Turay, potentially Kerry Hyder even, right? Saying, no, we can trade this guy and get back a 6th or a 7th rounder. Otherwise, we're going to have to cut them. I do think that will be something to watch. I know that teams out there who are thin at defensive line will be watching the 49ers on cut down day. No question about it. All right, this one comes in from 490 We Global, says, what's up with my guy O'Neal Jr.? O'Neal Jr. 490 We Global is talking about Leon O'Neal Jr., the safety that was the undrafted free agent coming in. He's a guy that's definitely on the fringe of this roster, but he didn't practice today. And I combed Twitter and brought in the tweet from Steph Sanchez, who was there in person, saying Leon O'Neal tweaked something in the early portion of practice, getting looked at by a trainer on the side now. So my guess is that we'll hear a little bit more about that. This could be another type of a scenario where you attempt to stash a player if he's dealing with something, a lingering injury of any sort. But I'm just not sure that Leon O'Neal Jr. has much of a shot at making this 53-man roster. I would anticipate that his best chance to stick with the Niners is to land on that practice squad and to continue developing throughout the year. You know, this goes back to what I saw from him at the Combine and just believing that, you know, he's got a little ways to go there. Just a little ways to go there to make the 53-man roster. All right, getting back into your questions live here in the chat. Again, if you're putting them in the chat, just hit me with @Rob or @RobShoe so I know that you're talking to me. Ellis10 says, Rob Shoe, so many fans saying that the 49ers should keep Jimmy G. I realize a lot of them are fans of different teams and don't understand his injury history. What do I think? I mean, this goes back to what I was talking about just throughout this program in mentioning Jimmy Garoppolo. So I will say definitively the Niners are better if they have a better backup quarterback. I will also acknowledge having Jimmy Garoppolo on this roster is a distraction. The question becomes, is it a bigger distraction than it is an advantage? And quite honestly, we can't answer that. We cannot. We can guess, we can give our opinions. But unless you have had long, lengthy conversations with Jimmy Garoppolo, with Trey Lance, with members of the 49ers locker room, with their coaching staff, then we don't truly have an understanding of what the dynamic would really feel like with Jimmy Garoppolo still in this locker room. I would imagine it would be unpleasant. I would imagine that players there would feel awkward having Jimmy around. It all depends on Trey Lance's health and how many games he starts. If he starts 17 games, then it doesn't freaking matter who your backup quarterback is. If that's not the case, then it might matter who your backup quarterback is. So I understand. I think I've just spelled out the equation that would tell you the answer there. I understand that you want me to answer it as well. I have to say that as of right now, I'm so torn on it that I struggle with the answer. I go back and forth. I was asked off the cuff, and I said, we'd be better if we had a better backup quarterback. If you can get Jimmy to take 10 to 12 million, you keep him. And then I started to think about the shit show that might become, the locker room devolving into chaos, the fandom and the fans that I would have to deal with. That's the hardest part for me. So you know what? I'm going to be selfish on this one. Are the 49ers a better team with a better backup quarterback? Yes, definitively. And I don't want to answer questions about Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think the answer there is no, we do not want Jimmy Garoppolo on the team. If he was, it would be as a backup, but we don't even want that. We don't. Too much of a distraction. Darren coming in. Rob, do you think Matt and Kyle might have a friendly handshake about blitzing to make Trey play a little longer? Thoughts on that? That's an interesting one. Who are we thinking of with Matt? Who's Matt in this equation? That's the question I have there, Darren. But Kyle Shanahan having a friendly handshake. Maybe we're talking about D'Amico and Kyle having a friendly handshake about blitzing to make Trey play a bit long. Oh, no, we're talking about the game against the Packers. Matt LaFleur and Kyle might have a friendly handshake about blitzing to make Trey play a little longer in the preseason game. I get it now, Darren. I had to work through it live. You all got to see the rusty wheels turning up there. I did, in fact, put 2 and 2 together to make 4. No, I don't think Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan are having a handshake agreement about anything. I'm guessing as game day arrives for those two, the friendship falls by the wayside, and there's a little bit of intensity that arises between Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan. Charles Alt coming in. Rob, who am I most excited to see this season? Got to be Trey Lance, number 1. First and foremost, Trey MFing Lance. Then I'm pretty excited to see a couple of the rookies. TDP, Ty Davis-Price, Danny Gray. I want to see those wheels in actual motion. I got to see it in real life. I got to see Danny Gray's speed, and I got to see TDP bowling ball some dude. I hope he does it Friday. I hope we get to see him just truck somebody. Ellis 10 says, Rob Shue, I heard that Trey had some quarterback designed runs today in practice. I heard that same thing, Ellis. And he got a 65-yard touchdown on one of them. I read that as well. Do these quarterback designed runs worry you at all, injury-wise? Interesting tweak there right at the end there, Ellis. I like that. Do they worry me? They worry me depending upon the frequency with which they are used against actual teams. I'm not worried at all that they're practicing it. And this is something that Trey Lance should use. It's a weapon in his arsenal. I would hope that there are more Trey escapes the pockets type of runs than quarterback designed runs, because that didn't work out very well against Arizona, and it wasn't pretty, and Trey didn't look 100% prepared to do it, and he did take a lot of shots in those runs. So my hope would be to minimize the number of shots Trey is taking. If the run is going well, if it's eluding defenses and he's able to get out of bounds without taking shots, then by all means, use it more frequently. Kevin says similar things. Only if he still dives into tackles and not slide in anticipation. I read that wrong. Kevin went the sarcastic route and basically said the exact opposite of what Trey Lance should be doing there. Only if he's taking huge shots the entire time while he's running, should he continue to run the football. Ken Fashion Journey says, Rob Shue, you're doing an awesome job for keeping us Niner fans as a family. For Trey to be successful, we cannot have Jimmy G around, but we need a better backup quarterback to make a Super Bowl run. I am totally on board with that. That's solid logic in that. I mean, thank you for the compliment. I'm not on board with the compliment. I'm accepting of the compliment. Thank you. But I'm on board with the idea that keeping Jimmy G around is a distraction, and it would be nice to upgrade the backup quarterback position. It is all about that. You don't want the awkwardness. J49 says, to hell with the awkwardness. Do you want to share a house with your ex-wife under the same roof? Got to move on. Trey time. That is the vibe that would happen. Ellis 10 says, Rob Shue, thank you for the detailed answer on keeping Jimmy G or not. I just tell these guys, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0 quarterbacks. Yes, that is a classic old saying. If you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you have 0 starting quarterbacks. Shane AZ 49ers Empire says, Rob Shue, how much do you think we will see TDP this first preseason game? I want to see this bruiser. Me too. I would expect a fair amount. I would expect to see TDP more than we see Elijah Mitchell. I would expect to see TDP more than we see Jeff Wilson Jr. I would hope that we would see long runs from both TDP and Trey Sermon. And by long runs, I mean keeping them in the game for a considerable amount of time. Darren Worthington says, Rob, that was impressive watching it live. I'll use last names next time. Impressive might not be the right word for watching me work through Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan and the names there. But yes, I appreciate you using those first names in the future. Definitely appreciate that. And appreciate the question. All right, I'm going back into a previously submitted one. If you want to get your last answered questions in the chat, put them in there now with @Rob Shoe. All right, this one comes in. True Speak is talking about that depth chart. I alluded to this earlier. Oh, we got Swan Song first. Swan Song's in here. It says, does playing at a small school like North Dakota State University make the pressure any less for the players and coaches involved? I think in normal circumstances, potentially, yes. If you're talking about a normal player, a coach coming out of NDSU, anyone other than Trey Lance, my answer would be yes. That should take some of the pressure off of there. My answer to the question as phrased, because I am reading it to be about Trey Lance, I'm saying nope. Being someone that comes from NDSU is not going to take the pressure off of Trey Lance. Playing on a big stage like the NFL for a team like the 49ers, who traded multiple first-round picks to draft you, the pressure doesn't get much higher than that. And because of the Jimmy Garoppolo saga, because Jimmy Garoppolo has not been traded yet, because he is still there throwing on the sideline while Trey is taking the first team reps, this may be the most closely watched transition to a young quarterback in recent memory. I cannot think of any other transition in recent memory that was as closely watched. I mean, you have to go back maybe to Aaron Rodgers' first complete season where he was taking over for Brett Favre. Now, I realize that was a different scenario, but that's really the closest I can think of where you have a significant change at quarterback that is getting scrutinized at an unbelievable level. And I wanted to point out, I read this from Aaron at 49ers First Takes. Shout out to Aaron, 49ers First Takes. Put this on Twitter. Once the 49ers made that trade to move up and draft Trey Lance, he's had the spotlight directly on him. No fault of his own. Everything from then till the foreseeable future will be scrutinized with a fine-tooth comb. I think Aaron nailed it in that one. I absolutely agree. I think the pressure is on Trey Lance. He is going to have to prove himself because this is a unique situation where all eyes are on the young gentleman, and it's not fair. It is not fair, but it is the truth. All right, this one comes in from True Speak. True Speak says, what's your biggest surprise from the unofficial depth chart that Shanahan apparently had no input on? Do you foresee any changes? Yeah, Shanahan's like, I spent zero time on this. I had zero input. Some dude in the office put this together. But clearly the dude in the office was watching what's going on in preseason in these training camp practices, because it does mirror what we're seeing as far as practice reps and how they're being divided, first team, second team, third team, and so on. But I will say that there are not many surprises on here. That's the first thing I want to acknowledge. Dude was watching practice. It mimics what we're seeing on the field. Maybe if you're reading the wide receiver spots as like Debo is clearly wide receiver 1. So if you then read his position as being wide receiver 1, 3, and 5, right? The names behind him being the third wide receiver and then the fifth wide receiver. If you read it that way, then I'd be slightly surprised to see Malik Turner above Danny Gray, because you have Malik Turner behind Debo and then Jauan Jennings and then Malik, whereas it starts with Brandon Ayuk on the other one and then goes to Ray McCloud and then comes in with Danny Gray. So if you're reading it as 1 through 6, that would technically put Danny Gray as the 6th wide receiver. So that would be a little bit surprising given the fact that I don't have Malik Turner making this roster personally. And then I have to acknowledge, we talked about this earlier, but the biggest surprise on there being Kemoko Turay. He's the 4th string defensive end. On the defensive ends, you have the starters and second string being Nick Bosa, Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, and Drake Jackson. Those all feel like just 1,000% locks to me. Nick Bosa, Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, and Drake Jackson. They are all making the roster, and I would anticipate that those are the top 4 on the team. Of these next 3, I think 2 of them make the roster. Jordan Willis, Kerry Hyder, and Kemoko Turay. So That is the question. Turay is who we've got our eye on right now. Can he beat out either Jordan Willis or Kerry Hyder? The surprise, though, is basically that the Niners really are this deep at defensive edge. I'd be shocked if the Niners don't trade one of these fringe players here. It's sort of nuts that we have that many edge rushers, and teams will be coveting cut down day if we do not make a trade. The second part of your question was around changes that I would make to this. And I got to say that, again, we're looking at a fairly accurate practice report so far. The changes I would expect would be in the running back depth. Right now, you have Elijah Mitchell 1, Jeff Wilson Jr. 2, which was a surprise, Trey Sermon 3, TDP 4. What I would expect this to break out as, and again, I only have the 49ers carrying 4 running backs plus juice to make 5 in the running back room. I would expect Elijah Mitchell 1, TDP 2, Trey Sermon 3, so that's actually unchanged, and Jordan Mason as the 4th there. I won't be shocked if Jeff Wilson Jr. beats out Jordan Mason, but as I have it right now, that's the way I am seeing it. All right, getting back into your current questions here. Those of you asking your questions in the chat, just make sure to hit the @Rob or @RobShoe. We got Russell Peterson in here. Russell Peterson says, Rob, I just got here. Can you start over? Yes, we're going back to the beginning for Russ. Let me start. First question. Does Willie Snead have a shot to come in and snatch the wide receiver 3 spot from Jennings? Or is he just a camp body? No, I'm messing with Russ here. Russ, you're going to get a shout out in a little bit on this show. I'm just throwing that out there, not BSing. That's the real deal. I'm glad that you made it in that case. All right, looking for the @RobShoe comments. Starco fan 212 sneakerhead here on the channel says, Rob Shoe, would you rather have Jimmy in preseason games so his trade value possibly goes up, or see Brock Purdy and see what he could do? I don't want Jimmy playing in games. Throwing on the side is one thing. I don't anticipate Jimmy faking an injury. I think he wants to play. I don't anticipate him suffering some type of an injury that now entitles him to that $7.5 million we would owe him if he were injured and he got cut. But man, if he went into a preseason game, would there be a chance of injury? Hell yeah, there would. I mean, this is Jimmy Garoppolo we're talking about here. And so, yeah, I would rather he not be in there for that reason, but I also do want to see Nate Sudfeld, and I do want to see Brock Purdy as well. I think you're correct about that, Starco fan. Kim Adams says, Rob, I might be selling my 67 GOAT. For those that don't know, that's a 67 Pontiac GTO. It's a badass ride. And if Kim sells it, everyone that's listening right now should be lining up to buy that thing. Kim, if you want to reach out to me, 49ers mailbag @gmail.com. I mean, depending on where that thing is in the market, I mean, you may have an interested buyer right here. I might need to get that thing. It looked pretty sweet. Swan Song coming in, Rob Shoe. I should have better explained. What I'm trying to say is that in the playoff run that Trey had at NDSU, the pressure to win is just as high. Not to us, but to them, it was the pinnacle. Okay, I see that. So what you're saying is that these people who say, hey, these people who come from a small school have never faced these high pressure scenarios are incorrect, that it is in fact high pressure. And I do think there's something to that. However, I have to acknowledge that playing at larger schools with more on the line, bigger games, probably does better prepare you. And there's a correlation, right, between the number of players coming out of small schools. Do I think that it prevents Lance from being successful? No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right, Carson coming in. Carson asking a good question. I love this one. Who will be the star of the first preseason game? He's already cooking. The man's going to keep cooking. Brandon Ayuk has come out to play. And I hope he doesn't, though, because I hope he doesn't in the preseason, because I really want to land him in a lot of fantasy drafts. I think Brandon Ayuk is going to have like 1,300 yards receiving. And I think you're going to be able to get him in the frickin' like 9th round of fantasy football drafts. And I want that to continue. A lot of people don't pay attention to preseason. So Brandon could have a great first game, and I could still land him at incredible value in fantasy football. I did the same with Debo last year. Brandon Ayuk was going above Debo, and I grabbed Debo in like 5 out of 6 leagues and won in 4 out of those 5 leagues. So yes, it matters when you can get that value. I'm going Brandon Ayuk, but it could be man, it could be any number of players. You could see a high sack total. You could see a couple of turnovers. I mean, what if it was Huff? What if Huff came out, sniffed that ball out, and intercepted it twice? I just want to see some real football. I'm sticking to my gut. I'm saying Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk has a big game. Ken Fashion Journey says, Rob Shue, how's Javon Kinlaw and Aaron Banks performing in their respective positions? This dude needs to deliver. These dudes need to deliver. Agreed. They do need to deliver. And both have been getting good reports so far. Javon Kinlaw is still ramping up his practices, has not had to take, as far as I know, an unexpected day off. They're still trying to ramp him up slowly. He's coming back from injury. Obviously had that offseason surgery. I agree, though. Both of them do need to perform. Aaron Banks has had very little run at the left guard position, meaning that he has had very little competition at the left guard position. Couldn't find my terms there. In that he was taking the vast majority of those left guard spots and has, by all accounts, looked good in that particular spot. All right, look at Thomas Luttrell in the building. What's up, Thomas? Rob Shue. I am encouraged by what I've heard about Kinlaw. With that being said, is he good enough to replace DJ Jones? You know that's got to bring on the DJ Jones barbecue sauce. DJ Jones. Also, does Robert Nkemdiche make the team based on Kinlaw's injury history? Thanks. I think Nkemdiche might make the team depending on what happens the rest of camp. He lit it up in Seahawks camp last year. It was an injury to him where he didn't make the 53-man roster. I think if he stays healthy, he's got a chance to make this 53-man roster. An injury to Maurice Hurst obviously has opened up a spot, and you would expect to see someone get dinged up to where they might land on the IR to start the season, and that would definitely provide an opportunity for Nkemdiche to make that roster. Ellis10 says, Ayuk is my fantasy sleeper. Laugh my ass off. I hope that you and me are like in the minority, because I'm really counting on grabbing Ayuk in a lot of these fantasy drafts. And if I talk too loudly and too many people realize it, they're going to start drafting him as well. And that's not what I want to happen. John B. Sneakerhead here on the channel says, Rob, Shanahan should call a shot play to Ayuk in the first couple of plays on Friday to put LaFleur on notice. I'm here for it. I am all here for it. I also like 49er Gang 916 prediction here. Jordan Mason is my guess for being a star in the first preseason game. I think that is absolutely possible. And I agree with Swanson's logic here. It's probably going to be a second or third string guy that lights it up because of playing time. And I do think that leads into 49er Gang 916 correct prediction here that it could be Jordan Mason. Tripp agrees. Jordan Mason is going to show out and beat out Sermon for running back 3. That would be wild. Ricky Williams, Rob, have you watched Trey Lance's college highlights? Yes, they blew me away. It's why I still have a envelope around here where I correctly predicted prior to the draft, about a month prior, that the Niners were going to draft Trey Lance. I watched his highlights and I was sold. I said to myself, the Niners are going to be sold here as well. The Niners are going to see what I like to do when I'm watching a prospect is first go in and watch the highlights. First the highlights, because that's like, if this dude hits his ceiling, if he does what he's capable of doing and all things fire on all cylinders, he could be this special in the league as well. It gives you an idea of just how good they might be able to be within the league. So I go back and I watch the highlights. I'm blown away. And then I go back and watch the important games, the entire season highlights, the lowlights as well, to give a more broad picture of the individual. But I find it very, very illuminating to actually find out what a perfect game looks like from these people. Like, hey, if you light it on fire, what does that look like? I realize that was a strange way to say that. All right, I got a couple more in here, but all three of these are pretty lighthearted. So I'm going to hit these all at once. This is your last chance to put in an @Rob or @RobShue if you're there in those comments and you want to get your question answered. This one coming back in from John B. I appreciate it. Okay, I'll be the pot stirrer. Should Dr. Disrespect get the QB4 spot over Jimmy? Now you have to understand a couple of things to get this reference here from John. Number one, you got to know who Dr. Disrespect is. He plays video games for a living and does pretty well at it. So if you know who he is, it's important that you know he was at practice today. He was throwing bombs to George Kittle. It was reported he threw a 50-yard bomb to Kittle after practice, right? Was chucking it downfield. Kittle was catching it. Hence the joke about Jimmy G. And you also have to know that when this roster came out today that some dude in the back put together without help from Kyle Shanahan, according to Kyle Shanahan, they put Jimmy Garoppolo as QB4 below Brock Purdy. And they asked Kyle Shanahan about that. And Kyle said, well, that must have been a technicality. I'm guessing if Jimmy was on that depth chart, then he had to be on that depth chart. But if we are attempting to make it an accurate depth chart of the best players available, I mean, Dr. Disrespect should have a shot at that QB4. I just want Jimmy to find himself a new home. I don't want to have the backhanded compliments to Jimmy. I don't want to make off-color jokes about him, but I can't help myself. When he's here, I have to do it. So please, please, please just find the man a new home. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I need. And this one coming in from Jack Hammer, I just had to put it on there. He responded to my tweet. He says, you rock, Rob. Keep up the good work. I wanted to take a moment to just say, Jack is freaking killing it at practices. If you don't follow Jack Hammer on Twitter, you need to. If you don't subscribe to Jack Hammer on YouTube, you really should. And if you're not reading his content at the blog over there at the Press Democrat, the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, you should bookmark that blog as well and visit it regularly. Good dialogues going on there. Good topics of conversation. Jack is the man. Yes, I'm all about supporting Jack Hammer because just a kind dude that continually brings it. Speaking of kind dudes, I said it, Russ, you were getting a shout out, and I wasn't kidding. This is a shout out to Russ P. And Russ, I just didn't put up your full info just because, I wanted to pay it the same respect that I do in the mailbag, that I don't know if people want their entire name out there for thousands of people to see. Russ reached out to me just being a good person. I was off for a couple of days last week, was off Wednesday, had the regular Thursday show, but then was off Friday and then didn't get back on for the Monday show. And Russ reached out. He was like, dude, I don't know that I've seen you go this long without streaming, at least not in a long time, and just wanted to say what's up, see if you were good. And I got to say, that was cool. Admittedly, I was down. Personal stuff going on. And Russ, just being a good human being, reached out to ask if everything was good. That's not expected behavior. This is not me saying like, I wish more people reached out. Like, no, not at all. I do not expect people to reach out. I don't expect people to check on me. But that's sort of my point here, is that when they do, when someone like Russ does take it upon themselves to check on someone that they know, I think that should be commended. More of us, myself included, need to get outside of ourselves and check on the people that we run into on a regular basis, the people we may care about in our lives, our friends, our family, people that we know. Always a good idea. Nothing bad ever comes from checking in on someone, right? Like, I mean, you may get caught up on some news that's not good news, but it's real. It's what's current. It's what's going on. And you just might be, and I'm not saying this is the case. I don't want people to worry about me. I just had a rough weekend. You might just be the voice that like saves that person's life. It's just, to me, it's to be commended when someone takes it upon themselves to reach out to another human being and be kind to them in whatever circumstance in life. I see that as something that should be celebrated. And so this is me celebrating you, Russ. I appreciate that. All right. I'm going to close out in the comments here. Just going for the Rob Shoe comments here. All right. John B says, he's a sneakerhead here on the channel. He says, Rob, I feel like I'm in the minority in thinking Jeff Wilson Jr. won't make the 53. The younger guys seem to bring more to the table. You're not in the minority. Well, we might be in the minority. I am with you there in that minority, saying that I don't think Jeff Wilson Jr. makes the 53-man roster. I do think that Jordan Mason beats him out. It's fair to say Jeff Wilson Jr. has the higher floor at this point in time. I would give him the edge as a Pass blocker, certainly, as a pass catcher, but I just don't think he has the same high upside that Jordan Mason does. I'm going to have my eye on that. Absolutely have my eye on that running back room and how it breaks out. Kevin, Sneakerhead here on the channel, says Rob 2, Niners versus Rob Shoe, not Rob 2. Niners versus Packers at 1:30 a.m. here in the UK, or soon to be hopefully independent Scotland. Hey, here's to that, Kevin. What are your predictions for the game and lineups? I have not given this one a hell of a lot of thought, Kevin. Admittedly, I need to. I believe I have said on Trey Lance and the starters, I think you see them for a couple of series. This is going to be a unique situation because the 49ers have 3 football games in 13 days. 3 games in 13 days. That's whack. And they have 2 joint practices. So you're going to see more of the starters than you would expect to in the first preseason game because Kyle Shanahan has indicated he may give them the day off for the second preseason game to make it a more natural progression from one game to the next. They may not get playing time in that second preseason game against Minnesota. They will get playing time in the 2 practices against Minnesota, but maybe not when they play that actual preseason. So I think you'll see more of the starters, but this is still the first preseason game, so it'll be 75% second, third, and fourth string players. Looking at Swan Song, throwing some tomatoes in there. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Ken Fashion Journey says, Rob Shoe, it will be awesome to have Fitzpatrick to come out of retirement as a backup for Trey. We need a beard. I'm all for bringing any beards onto the team. Any beards that can, bring them in. Bring them in. Ellis10 talking about Russell Peterson says, respect to you, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. J49 says, thanks, Rob. Everyone in this chat supports you. Be well. Appreciate that, J49. And Russell Peterson himself, I can say the name now because your name is up on the screen. Sorry, Russell. Says, thanks for the kind words. Thank you for the kind words, Russ. Honestly, thank you. Bringing in, this could happen on the running back room as well. I just want to bring this in as a potential last thought here, saying Jeff Wilson Jr. may be another one of those that's on the fence for a slight trade. Running backs are less valued than defensive ends, so that's going to be tough. But the Niners, between JaMychal Hasty, Jeff Wilson Jr., or potentially Jordan Mason, really do have a back that should make an NFL roster. I could see a scenario wherein you trade somebody for a 7th round pick. You'd much rather get some sort of a return on investment than cutting one of these players and watching them go to another team at that point. We've got CarCast in the building saying, what's up? Just wanted to say, hey. And CJ Gray as well. Hold up. Let me get in CJ Gray before that super chat saying, yo. And Kevin coming in to say, another fab show, Rob. Loving your insight, ability to collab, think on your feet, and treat everyone right. Cheers. Cheers to you, Kevin from Glasgow. Did I say that right? Or is it Glasgow? I keep getting it wrong. I think it's Glasgow. Correct me, Kevin. You've had to do it before. All right, we got to get in Chris Royal super chat here. He says, you may have my number and I'm a short drive away. You have my number and I'm a short drive away, my dude. You need anything, I'm there, my man. Good dudes got to unite and you're a damn good one. Chris, cheers to you, man. I appreciate that. I look forward to seeing you this weekend, man. I'm absolutely coming out to the barbecue. The Salem 49ers crew is getting together and Rob Shoe is going to be there, man. No doubt about it. I look forward to seeing you in person, Chris, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. You know how it is, man. When you're feeling down, that phone is heavy. It's freaking heavy. It's a lead weight. You just don't want to pick it up, right? You just want to sit in whatever it is you're going through. The couch looks super inviting. The phone is super heavy. People call and you're like, do I really want to pick it up? It's just that vibe. And I know people get it. And I talk about it because I want to normalize it. I think we ought to talk about it more often. NYCE 1030 comes in at Rob Shoe. I like what Trey is bringing, but I feel like he's still struggling with those mid passes and finesse touches. I hope those passes get better sooner than later. Me too, but you have to look at what he brings to the table as far as his additional skill set, and you got to think Coach Shanahan's going to be able to use those skills to sort of paint around the areas wherein he's struggling. His legs, his ability to throw deep. If teams can't pack 8, 9 men into the box, those throws over the middle get a little bit easier. But I do agree, he still is struggling in those areas where we expected him to struggle. Dustin, we need to fly Dustin out from Austin to go to the barbecue. Dustin, I expect you to be there. All right, we're getting back to a couple more comments, and then we are out of here. Dr. Jaspreet comes in. Rob Shue, think our starting center is on another team right now. They are just waiting for centers to get released, cut as we move towards the final 53, or do you think Brendel is good enough? I got my doubts about Brendel. I bought hook, line, and sinker what they were selling us when they were selling us that Brendel was going to be the starter. Now that they're splitting reps between he and Daniel Brunskill, I'm a little bit worried as to what that signals. No, I don't think our starting center is on another roster. I think it's between Brendel and Brunskill. But am I confident about either one of those guys going into the season? Answer to that is I am not. I am not confident about that. John B., sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, thank you for sharing your time with us and being one of the few sports content creators to give other fans a voice. We are here for you and hope any personal things you dealt with are resolved. Thank you, John. Cheers to that. Cheers to kindness, man. Like, just looking out for other human beings. You think of how much better the world would be if we all spent a little bit of time doing that? Like, just a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, looking out for our fellow people, being kinder to people, talking less shit, being nice. I know that at times the talking trash is a hell of a lot funnier. And believe me, I'm in on that as long as it's good natured. And I also think that we miss the boat when it comes to kindness. Luke Walsh coming in. Rob Shue, I was so mad after the 86 divisional playoff game loss versus the New York Giants. I stopped shaving. I've had a beard ever since then. That's fantastic. Luke, you may be one of the only people I know that's had a beard longer than I have, because this bad boy's been growing now for 15 years. 15 years. You got me beat by a freaking country mile. In 1986, I could not grow any hair save anywhere than my head, which ironically now I can no longer grow hair on. It is ironic, isn't it? Got to bring in Dustin Kohler. Good man. Gotcha, my friend. You know that. I do know that, Dustin. But thank you for saying it anyways. Swansong says, Rob Shue, I'm a good listener and been told that I have a knack for seeing silver linings. I'm a DM away. Dude, I freaking love this channel. I love the positivity. I love the support. I absolutely could not ask for anything more, dude. That's huge. All right, I don't know the name on this one, but he says, Rob Shue, I love how Trey is 67% on move the ball drills. The only thing in training camp that really matters if you're going to use training camp stats. The training camp stats, it happened last year in comparing Jimmy and Trey, and it's happening this year simply in evaluating Trey in a vacuum. And it is wild to me, wild how serious some people are taking that. Dustin Kohler says, you don't want to see Shue without a beard. It's scary. This may be this is the only person in the chat that has seen this guy without a beard, because Dirk's not here. If Dirk were here, Dirk and Dustin would be the only two in the chat. I appreciate it, Dustin. I know he's messing with me on this one. Dustin's my boy. All right. Alexander F. coming in here to say what's up and say I'm the man. You know that's getting on screen. You know it is. Oh, no. Dustin has said, I don't look good without a beard. And now Cheese is like, dude, can you show us a pic? No, I cannot. Not at this moment, at least. Dr. Jaspreet, this is going to be the last one. Says, Rob Shue, missing the Niners' first preseason game to introduce my girlfriend to my parents. 3 years in the making. Would never miss it for any other reason, but she's worth it. Wish us luck. Go Niners. Dr. Jaspreet, first of all, that's a hell of a reason to miss a 49ers preseason game. No shame in that game. Whomever is important in your life, and it sounds as if your current girlfriend is, man, take that time. Show her she's special to you. Show your parents that you value their time. I am all for this. And any trash talk about, whatever you want to say, I'm not with that. I am all about this wholesome content right there. I hope that you do have good luck. I hope your parents and your girlfriend have a smashing time together, and that it is wonderful from there on out. And you'll be able to watch that game on replay. It's going to work out. It's fantastic. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you being here. And Luke comes in with the key information. Game Pass has commercial-free reruns. You saved yourself like an hour and a half, Dr. Jaspreet. Saved yourself time. I'm all for it. Now, regular season game, might have to readjust those priorities. But I'm with Kevin here. Congratulations. Congratulations on that. 3 years in the making is a special thing. Cherish that. Cherish that. Chris Coase says, Rob Shu, why isn't Elijah Mitchell in the conversation for a breakout season? I think he's not in the conversation because he had a good season last year, and the 49ers invested again, another high draft pick in TDP. So I see the Niners as having much more of a running back by committee or three-headed monster. I just don't think it's going to be the Elijah Mitchell show as it was last year. That would catch me off guard if it was. So I would say Elijah Mitchell had his breakout season. I wouldn't expect another one here. This has been a fantastic show. I love the mailbag. I'm going to be back on tomorrow, 5 p.m. between two beards, me, Randon McMahon, breaking down 49ers training camp. We are moving ever so closer to actual football. We got preseason game on Friday versus the Green Bay Packers. Bring it on. We're going to get Dirk Pippen back on the channel because Dirk's a Packers fan. So we got to get a little bit of trash talk going there. NYCE 1030, appreciate you saying another great show. Thanks, Rob. And everyone smash that thumbs up. Go Niners. Thank you very much. Please do hit that like button on your way out. I appreciate all of the questions, whether you submitted them ahead of time by emailing me at 49ersmailbag@gmail.com, or if you responded on Twitter to the left shoe, or if you were here live in the frickin' chat asking all of those questions live. Luke Wall saying, Ronnie Lott, hit that like button. Don't break it. Don't break that like button, but hit it. Hit it. Yes. I appreciate all of you being here. Everybody in the chat, even if you weren't asking questions, just having a chat back and forth, I'm all for that. Again, I'll be on tomorrow at 5 p.m. with Randon McMahon. Until then, cheers, faithful.